Okay. So, and then I recorded it before, and then I put it on my YouTube channel. So I'll do the same with this, and then send her the link.
Okay.
And so I'm going to try to do that every time, but we'll see. And I think, and I need to turn this other light on. Um, yeah, so I can see what I'm reading. Okay. And I pray over these lessons and everything because I want to make sure that I, you know, say what the Most High wants me to say. And
Right.
so, but anyway, so we're in Revelation, still chapter 1. We're going to try to get from 11 to verse 20. We'll see if we make it today on that. I don't know. But at any rate, there's a lot to this, but at the same time, I'm going to kind of go kind of fast through it. And um, so, and also because it's going to take us into some other books of the Bible, it's going to take us into um, Daniel, and we'll read part of Daniel. I think Ezekiel, Luke, Acts, Peter. So, um, so we'll kind of make the go rounds today. And I didn't tell you all this to begin with, but Revelation was written originally in Hebrew, but um, the King James seems to have interpreted it from the Greek version of it. And so the name Revelation is actually the name Hazon, Hazon. And so that the reason I'm saying that is because there's a couple of words that we're going to come across that um, are rendered in Greek but should be in Hebrew, and that kind of makes a bit of a difference, okay? And
Okay.
so when we go into Revelation chapter 1, and we'll start, as I said, at verse 11. And again, if you all have questions, either put it in the chat or you can text me. I have my phone right here. You can text me, or, um, if you want to write them down and ask me later, you could do that as well. Okay. Starting at verse 11, it's maybe I should start mm, a little before that. Because we talked about verse 10. We ended at verse 10 where he says, I was in the Spirit on Yahweh's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, and send it unto the seven churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Now, I want to pause where it says Alpha and Omega. Those are both Greek. Those are both Greek terms, and it's the beginning. Alpha is the beginning of the Greek alphabet, and Omega is the beginning of the end of the Greek alphabet. But in actuality, in Hebrew, it's Aleph, Aleph, and the end is Taw, Taw. And so, I kind of wanted to point that out because um, the when John is writing this unveiling, he like I said, he did it in Hebrew, and I don't want the Greek influence in this. Okay, now, um, yeah, I think I'll stop with that part right there. All right. So if you have a question about it, let me know. But anyway, so John is about to see something. He's about to, things are going to be revealed to him, and it's an unveiling of something that existed, but it hasn't been seen. Excuse me. It's been hidden, but it's existed all along. And and that's what revelation or hazon means, is to reveal something that was hidden. All right. So um, now, when we go to Ezekiel and we go to Daniel, some of this same thing that we see in Revelation, they wrote about, they saw in a dream or in a vision, or the Most High spoke it to them, and they, made an account. They wrote it out so that other people would be able to have it. Okay, now the thing about it is, there are several times with Daniel, and I think also with Ezekiel, where he told him to write it in a book, but to close it up, and you know, so that way nobody could see it. And uh, so because the time was not yet for people to see. All right. So we are going to be looking at some things in both of those books, like I said. But this is an unveiling, this is a revealing of some things that were hidden. Um, so John, and I had referred to him before as the letter writer, because and I also mentioned, oh, let's see, um, the other one, I can't think of its name now, and he also wrote letters, and he was a student of John, and Polycarp was a student of John, and so he picked up on what John was doing, and was distributing, copying the information, and then having runners take it to different places. And so that was after the scattering, and so that was getting the word out, excuse me, even more. So anyway, so John was commanded to write the vision in regards to the unveiling in a book, excuse me, and send it to the seven churches which are in Asia. And I think I mentioned last time that um, that was all in Turkey. No, I think what I was talking about also was Iran, was the um, the Persian country is what is now called Iran. Um, these seven churches are in what is now called Turkey. And um, so he said to send it to all of these different churches that are in Asia, and each church assembly gets gets a letter. Not send one letter and have it go to the different churches, but send each church um, the same letter, a copy of the same. I mean, the letter that applied to that church. Okay, so every church, every one of those churches got a letter, and then he goes on. Um, oh well, let me say this too. In the churches, these churches existed. These same churches, because you know how I'm always looking for um, archaeological finds and things like that. And these churches, they said, existed until 1453, and that now there is really not much of a trace of these churches. They just They just know where they used to be. And the Ottoman Empire came in and destroyed Constantinople, and we're familiar with that because of Constantine and all the things that he had done. And so um, the Ottoman Empire came in, they destroyed Constantinople in 1453, and they eliminated the Roman Empire of that day. And and also, that included those seven churches. All right. When John wrote this, it was around 90 to 94 AD. And so, here we have, you know, 14, well, 1350 years later, something like that, is when the Ottoman Empire came in and just destroyed all of them. It's amazing to me how long the Roman Empire lasted and how large they became. And there were some others, and actually, well, no, I'm not going to go into that. But anyway, so um, so those right now, there's very little evidence that those churches even existed. Um, as far as going to those sites and looking for evidence, um, it's not much of anything there. It's only what's been written and passed down, or set aside somewhere, for people to discover.
Okay.
Okay. So in verse 12, he says, "I turned to see the voice that spoke with me." Okay, so this was very interesting to me. And um, as usual, I don't know that I'm going to get through this, but this was very interesting to me because it came to me that this was like a virtual reality situation. Now, I don't know if you all have ever had a VR and looked through the VR, the virtual reality device. Have you ever done that?
No.
Okay. Um, Tressa, if you have done that, if you haven't done it, just wave your hand so I could see your hand. Are you at the camera? I can't see her in the camera. Okay, but anyway, I have one of those devices. When they first came out, I saw it. I saw it, and I'm like, oh, I need to get one of these. And so Bob got that for me, and I put that thing on, and it is just unbelievable. Um, I have traveled through the VR to a lot of those places in the Bible, and by sitting in my chair. Now, I have one of the original ones, and with the original one, if you get up and try to walk, you'll walk into your furniture and you'll walk into your door, you walk into your wall, you know. But the newer ones, I looked at the new ones, and the ones they have now incorporates the things that's in your room and where you're walking, so that you don't walk into anything, but you don't see anything that's in your room. You only see what's in the VR. So it's like you are actually in that place, and you can look around. Now with my original VR, I could look around, but I couldn't really walk around. But here in the new VRs, you can even walk around, and you can reach out and grab things that you see in the images of the VR. You can actually grab them, you can throw them, you can do different things. Um, so it's actually kind of scary because when they say virtual reality, it is a lot like reality. It's like you're really there. And I can see people getting addicted to something like that because they're, they're going, depending on what they do. I mean, they do that even in gaming now. Um, and so you could be, if you don't cook, you can be in the kitchen cooking. And have your rest.
Don't have anything. Don't
Uh,
have anything to eat
No, you don't. But so the virtual reality thing, excuse me, is it's just it's just amazing. And so if you ever get a chance, just try it. If you go to one of those cell phone stores, they usually have those in where you could just try it, and you don't have to buy it to try it. You could just try it, and I tell you, it's amazing. And so I was thinking about that when I read this about John, and when you know this is the first time that I thought about this, because in the past when I've done Revelation, the VR wasn't invented. So, but now that I've had that experience, and I'm like, oh wow, John was in the spirit realm where he could turn and he can look and he can talk. So he was, even though he was, you know, in his body in the physical realm, he was also present in the spiritual realm and able to turn and look and see things. And so he was existing in the spirit realm, and he was moving around in that. And so, when we first started looking at Revelation years ago, it it was kind of like John was sitting there and looking at a movie, that it was playing out in front of him. But in actuality, he was involved in it. He was, you know, he was all in, okay? And so anyway, so he was an active part of it. And so he turned to see what was where this voice was coming from. And so when he turned around, um, it says he saw, let me see, he said, I turned in verse 12, I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and being turned, I saw seven golden candlesticks. Now, they're actually lampstands, and um, now I had to think about this thing. Were they like actual just lampstands, or were they seven, like one menorah with the seven going up, or was there seven menorahs all around? And I believe it was seven menorahs, and they're not like the little ones like what I have at PB&J or those. They were like big, tall. And so seven of those, and in the midst of them was Yeshua standing there. And um, and so John would recognize him because, John was with him. And so anyway, he goes on, and uh, he had, oh, I didn't finish reading that. Let me finish reading that. Um, It was uh, like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to his feet, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. So he had like a golden wrap, belt around him. Now, paps, that's the breast, the breast or the chest part, and so he had this golden thing wrapped around. A lot of people want to put it like a golden belt around his waist, but it didn't say around the waist. It said around the chest part. And so, but anyway, he had it on, and I don't know if there's any significance as to where he wore it, but anyway, he goes on to describe what he's seeing in verse 14. He said, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Now, in reading that, um, that took me to Daniel 7:9. And so I will read Daniel 7:9. And Daniel 7:9 says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair on his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as a burning fire. And then, because Daniel, I had mentioned how Daniel also, um, had visions and communicated with the Most High. And in Daniel 10, verses 5 and 6, he said, Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and beheld a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were. Now, here's where the belt comes in, where people would say, oh, it was probably a belt, girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body was like the beryl, um, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as flame of fire, and his arms and his feet like the color of polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And then in going down in verse 15, it says, His feet was like, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And I remember as a kid, because, I told you before, I've been in the book of Revelation since I was 12 or 13 years old. And okay, I just turned 73. So it's been, a minute or two. But I remember reading this, and I wasn't saved when I was, kid, and I was reading it, but I was reading these things every night, the book of Revelation every night, and in Ecclesiastes as well. And and I remember telling people when they asked me about my dad, I would say my dad's voice is like the sound of many waters, know, because when my dad spoke, um, I mean, my dad spoke, it was it. I mean, he wasn't mean or anything like that, but he said what he, huh?
Like he had an authority voice.
Exactly, with authority. He said what he mean and he meant what he said. And
Yeah.
you could take it to the bank. Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. All right, so we're down to the 10-minute part. And so then also, I don't think I'm going to read it. Well, yeah. Okay, in Ezekiel, it talks about this. Ezekiel 43 verses 1 and 2. And it says, afterward, he brought me, and now, Ezekiel's seeing what the Most High is showing him. He says, afterward, he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east. And behold, the glory of the Elohim of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like the noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. And so we see similarities in these prophetic books of the old writings. All right. Uh, let's see. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and um, you know talk about verses just quickly, verses 16 through 20. And when you get a chance, read that because it's talking um, still about the Most High, and he had in his right hand the 7 stars. Next week we'll talk about more about those 7 stars. Um, we'll talk, and in verse 16 it says, out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword. That means, when he comes back, he's coming back to judge. He's not coming back like the lamb and, for the slaughter. He's already done that. And so when he comes back, he's coming back as the judge, and for justice. And so he's going to do those things. And that sword, it cuts both ways, and we know a little bit about the sword, because we know that the sword of the Spirit is the word of the Most High, and the word cuts. The word can cut, and a lot of people can't handle the word. And then also he mentions the keys. He says, "I have the keys to hell and death." We'll talk about that. Um, but at the end of the tribulation, the millennium, hell and death will be thrown in the lake of fire. There's a lot of people that don't believe in hell. That's okay. You don't have to believe in that. Just know this: if you are not saved, you will be in the lake of fire. And so, you know, hell and death is the last thing. These are the last things that's going to be destroyed, is hell and death. But it's all going to be thrown in the lake of fire. All right. Um, let's see. When, oh my goodness. Well, how much time do I have? Okay. Now, let me go back. Death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua is all tied into this. I mean, it's just amazing how the whole Bible is tied into this, because even, um, well, no, I don't want to go that far. But anyway, um, because he's 3 days, he was executed, and 3 days later, 3 days and 3 nights, then he arose from the dead. Now, what happened during those 3 days? Um, now, let me see. Okay, let me say this. When we die, and it was the same when he died, and this was a good example of that. Okay, the spirit goes to the Most High. If you save, the spirit goes to the Most High. Your body goes in the grave, and it will decay. The soul sleeps. The soul will sleep. So when Yeshua comes on the cloud, okay, when we die, our spirit goes to the Most High. Our soul is sleeping. When Yeshua comes, our spirit will come with him. Our soul will rise up, will awaken and meet him in the air. And we'll have our new bodies, and so we'll be body, soul, and spirit, um, in a different form, in a different composition. We won't be flesh and blood. Um, we'll have a spiritual body that our spirit and our soul will be in. Okay, and um, so uh, when he gave up the ghost, he died, and he's on the tree, or on the stake, and he says, um, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." And so this lets us know the spirit goes to the Most High. And then we know that his flesh was dead in the grave, in that tomb, but he was in hell, preaching to the ones in hell. All right. Um, let's see. I'm just going to give you some scriptures. Acts 2, verses 25 through 27. Psalm 16 talks about him going to hell. 1 Peter 3, verses 18 and 19 said he preached to the spirits in hell. And that word preach means to proclaim. He made a proclamation. Also, John, let's see, 19, verse 40 through 42. And so we have those scriptures. And when you get a chance, look those up. We just got a few more minutes. When you get a chance, look at those scriptures, because he didn't um when he died, those 3 days, it wasn't just a corpse in a grave, and he wasn't doing anything. He was busy. He was do he was busy. And then 3 days later he came back. Now, we will see that where he says, I have the keys to hell and death. That's He got that when he went down there. When he went to hell, he got the keys to hell and death. He got control and authority and dominion over that. And um, so, when we go into further into Revelation, let's see. I'm just trying to think of. Well, do you have any questions?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, she's shaking her head no too. All right, okay. Do you understand what I was talking about?
Mhm.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you, Tressa, if there's anything you don't understand, let me know. Okay? All right, because I don't want any confusion about this, because that's the trick of the enemy. That's what he wants to do, is cause people to be confused. And so, if there's any confusion at all, let me know so I can clarify. Okay. All right. So, we got a minute and a half left. I thank you all for joining me today, and I'll get more into the explanation of those last few verses next week.
Okay.
All righty. Have a good, blessed evening and a restful night's sleep. Okay.
Thank you as well.
All right. Thanks you. All right. Bye bye.